We are live. We are back. It's been quite a bit since we've been back on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host of the Fighting Queens interviews, Jake, not from State Farm. And today, I have been very excited about this interview ever since we finally got a chance to make it happen. She is the number one for Britain Hart's Championship. She is the number one strawweight right now in bare knuckle. Please help me welcome in Doctor herself, Miss Sara Shell. How's it going, Miss Shell? Sara?
It's going good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, answer some questions. And yeah, it's fight camp now for me. So I'm just getting ready for really like the biggest fight of my life. And I'm really excited to challenge Britain for that.
Have they finally announced that this fight's going to happen?
No, you know what? We know it's going to happen, and they've played around with some dates, but no, we haven't had an official date yet. But it sounds like they're trying to make it happen in March. So, you know, I'm already in fight camp and I'm just waiting for that date, but they haven't officially given us a date yet. But as soon as they do, you know, I'm signing that contract right away. I'm ready. And yeah, they know that both of us are waiting for that.
And of course, let's go ahead and get things started. So we all get inspired by what we do best. Me when it comes to interviewing, you when it comes to fighting. So what inspired you to start fighting?
You know, it's so long ago. You know, I started fighting when I was 21 years old. So back in 2010. So I've been fighting, you know, my whole adult life. It's just what I know. It's what I do. It's just so ingrained in my lifestyle. It's just who I am. You know, I've always been a natural competitor, and you know, really it fell in my lap. I was randomly asked to fight one day. I worked at a nutrition store, so you get all sorts of athletes, you know, running through there. And it just so happened a fight manager / matchmaker was in my nutrition store, and a female had pulled out of a fight that was happening 12 days later. And I've never, you know, I didn't get in fights as a young kid. I really never been in fights or anything before. And so I was really just an athlete. You know, I had an older brother, so, you know, I was tough and, you know, confident in my physical abilities. And yeah, I just said yes. And 12 days later, I was fighting on TV. I had no idea how big it would be, because I didn't realize that's how easy it was to get into fighting. I didn't realize that it was going to be on TV and be as big as it was, but I really got thrown in there, and I loved it after my first fight. And yeah, I immediately just started looking for the next fight. I think I had 6 MMA fights that first year with no training. I still, you know, the whole year of my first year of fighting, I had no training, and I was doing Muay Thai and kickboxing fights and 6 MMA fights. And I literally did not learn how to kick until I moved to America 1 year later, because I decided to take it seriously. But I had not, you know, hit pad or punched a bag. Like I was just an athlete. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it, very, very randomly.
Oh, so you mean to tell me that you had 6 MMA bouts and you was training in boxing and Muay Thai?
Yeah, so I never did any boxing fights, but, you know, I was a natural born striker. You know, I immediately learned that I was a striker. You know, in my first MMA fight, I dropped the girl down, really like the first couple, you know, exchanges of punches. And that's when I was like, dang, like I got power. You know, and I grew up playing tennis. So I've always, you know, you know, my whole childhood and part of my teenage years, I was playing tennis. And so that's just, you know, that natural snap power that, you know, I did for so long in my childhood. So I naturally have a lot of power, and, you know, striking was always my specialty and what I like to do. You know, my whole entire MMA career, I think I have about 17, 18 MMA fights. And I was always a striker. I always wanted to stand, and my opponents always wanted to take me down. So that's largely how that went. And I, you know, did a lot of Muay Thai fights and kickboxing fights as well too. And, you know, I should have been in boxing a long time ago. I should have been in boxing long ago, but I never had the connections. I was always, you know, into MMA. And so that's just what I stuck with. And I moved to America when I decided to take fighting seriously, and I joined a Muay Thai gym. So I did lots of Muay Thai fights and kickboxing, you know, on top of that, and finally learned how to kick. But, you know, for the first year of my fighting, you know, amateur career, I was just punching. I just depended on my punches. And I did not know how to kick. I didn't learn about the twisting of the hips and how to actually kick properly until I went to a Muay Thai gym. And, you know, they thought this new experienced fighter was coming in. And I just go to the coach and I'm like, dude, like on paper, it looks like I know how to fight, but, you know, I'm a beginner. And I've always kept that mentality. I'm always willing to learn. I'm like a little sponge. And, you know, with mixed martial arts in general, there's always so much to learn. And and I just love that about mixed martial arts in general.
And of course, you transitioned from going from Canada to America. How difficult was that transition? And what was going through your mind, knowing full well that you wanted to take this sport so seriously that you was willing to travel to another country?
Yeah, you know what? It was really easy for me. I loved fighting so much when I got into it, and I didn't really have support. I didn't. Nobody really understood, why all of a sudden I was fighting, and I just happened to be good at it, and I was so intense and focused on training, and I didn't really have support, and so it was very easy for me to make that transition and take it seriously. It made me happy, and it made me happy, and it made me focused. It gave me a goal. And so for me, it was very easy. It gave me purpose. I always say there's nothing compares to the character and discipline that you can build, with mixed martial arts. There's just something about fighters that is just next level. And I've always been trying to chase that and to build that. So yeah, I very, very independently just moved to America, just dropped everything, left family, friends. I grew up in Vancouver my whole life. So I left everything. And I just went on this fighting journey and, got my student visa. Really I chose to become a doctor because, that would allow me to be in the States the longest. I didn't want to move right after my undergrad. I was afraid I'd get kicked out after 4 years, get my undergrad and have to move out. So I immediately chose the pre-med program and that I ended up getting married an American. So I didn't, actually need that. But, I was so into my program and becoming a doctor that was just the next step. I'm someone who, when I set a goal, I obsess over that goal. That's just always been who I am, and I'm very patient and I'm very disciplined. So this has just been another long-term goal that's just been in the background.
And of course, you mentioned being a doctor, and of course, this is something that always amazes me because if you guys go follow her on Instagram, which by the way, as you guys should, at Dr. _Sara Shell, you guys know that she's a very busy woman outside of fighting, doing doctor stuff. And of course, my question to you is, how does one manage to have a schedule to be both a doctor and a fighter at the same time?
Well, I mean, the cool thing is I'm the boss, right? So, I own my own medical clinic and, I'm the primary doctor here. I have other doctors that work for me too, but, I'm the primary doctor. So I get to rearrange my schedule how I like to do it. And so I work full time, but I see patients Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that's why I'm flexible Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sundays. But, as a business owner, it never stops. Even today, I just changed out of my scrubs just for this interview, but, I was still in my scrubs at work. I also went to 2 training sessions today as well, too. So, being, in charge of my own business, my schedule is how I want it to be. So there's some freedom there, but, it's worked out perfectly for me. When I was in school, I had so many limitations. I couldn't pay for training. I didn't really have flexibility, and this is what I worked for so that I can, have the flexibility. I pay for privates, and, I have a coach who, works along my schedule. I've worked to be able to get to this point so that I can become the best fighter that I can be. So it's really been a long time journey, but I'm really exactly where I wanted to be, 15 years ago. And I got 3 kids, and I recently started homeschooling 2 of them. Like they come to work with me on my patient days. I do their school on my off days as well too. But again, I have a flexible schedule, and it allows me the freedom to do these types of things.
And of course, not to mention that, of course, fans don't know is that you train at Pro Edge Boxing in Phoenix, Arizona. Talk about how much they've helped you ever since you joined them, and what's the atmosphere like when you go down there and train?
Yeah, you know what? It's amazing. It's like no other gym that I've ever been to. Like I said, like now I'm in a position where I can pay for my private lessons, and so I've never had that before. I've never had a coach hold pad for me. Before my first bare knuckle fight, that was the first time I really had a coach actually holding pad for me. Before then, I was at a Muay Thai gym, and it's always been teammates. And my teammates are, they're always amazing, very good, but there's something different when you have a coach who is, on the same path and looking at your weaknesses and how we need to improve it. So ever since I started BKFC, I've had a personal coach who he arranges his schedule for me. So I could text him right now and be like, I'm coming to the gym, and he'll be there. He'll be ready.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, having someone in my corner like that who is just, he knows me entirely. He knows my strengths and my weaknesses, and we're working to build the strongest fighter possible. And that's always what I've needed, but I didn't have the resources to be able to do that in the past. And so I've been very patient, and I'm in a place now where every single fight I'm going to get, I'm just going to be a different fighter each time.
And of course, not to mention that, of course, a lot of times fans don't understand that training, sometimes we love training, training can be fun, but then there are those days where it can be the most difficult. So, from your perspective, what has been the hardest part about training?
Um, you know what? I'm someone who on those hard days sometimes those are the days that I love to be there the most.
Yeah.
I'm someone who I'm very inside. I have a strong internal dialogue, and so I'm constantly processing challenges in my life and trying to build that mindset. As opposed to thinking of why is this happening to me, I more so think of what's the lesson that this is trying to teach me, or how can I overcome this? And I've really had that mindset for a long time. Like I said, I moved to America on my own, so I was largely in isolation, and I've been working on my mindset ever since. And that's a very unique mindset, I think, than a lot of fighters. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't really see challenges as too much challenges. It's something that I search for those challenges. I search for those harder days and harder trainings. I expect to. I always say, like, whenever I go to training, I always say, like, I expect to die and be reborn again. So every training that I go to, I want to feel extreme fatigue, and I want to feel like I left everything in there. And that's what I do every day when I go to training. I love to train. I think of it as a privilege, and I just want to be the best that I can be. I don't want any shortcuts. I want to do the hard work, and I've always been like that. There's something that drives me to do that and to love that. That this is. I always say, like, too. I'm here because I want to be, not because I have to be.
Yeah. And you definitely chose to be here because of how much that you love the sport from where you are to basically from back then to where you are now. And of course, that leads up to my next question. It's like every fighter just takes their time, just kind of just reminisce on where they started to where you are now. So do you ever kind of just take a moment, just kind of reflect on that past to for your future?
Absolutely. Just a lot of improvements. Little Sarah would be really proud of me. There's been a lot of times, many years where I had to discover myself, and that's why I think mindset is a very unique part of me. My mind is definitely in the right place to be a fighter, and my mindset, I think from the start, it's always been a good foundation to start with, because I went into my very first fight, nothing to prove to anyone. I didn't get any, like, I don't get fight anxiety or fight fears. I'm really just there for myself, and because I love the challenge, and because I got thrown into it so uniquely, I've really had a good foundation to start with, and I really just built on that. I've never really expected anything from myself. And I just love everything about training and getting better. And like I said, like, yeah, I think there's always room for improvement in everything, and I'm willing to put in the work, and I'm nowhere near the place that I can be, and that's why I love this sport. I love this sport. I'm going to get better each time, and yeah, I've made so many improvements from where I was when I was 20 years old, first getting into it.
I have to ask this because this was a really good question. Of course, being an amateur, doing MMA fights, and here you are wanting to stand up and box. Do you ever kind of get moments during your fights where you're just so aggravated because, like, hey, I want to stand up, and there's like, oh, here we go down to the ground again.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, with MMA, there was always that kind of, like, I'm good on the ground, and it's fine, but it's just there's something about standing and banging. Like, I love to stand and bang. I get excited about it. And as I got more skilled and a little bit more experienced in fighting, I learned to control that.
Yeah.
But I always say plan A is to stay technical, and plan B is if I get hurt, like, the brawler is coming out, and I'm a dangerous brawler. That's where I was. When I was an amateur, I was just all about just brawling, and that's something that you make with experience. You learn to stay calm, and you learn to be a little bit more technical and smarter.
Yeah.
A little bit better fight IQ, but yeah, the natural, love in my heart is to go crazy and to brawl. That's just something that I don't know why, because I was never a fighter growing up, but it's just the challenge. It's the mental and physical challenge. Fighting is like human chess. And funny enough, I was a competitive chess player growing up as a kid. I used to play competitive chess tournaments. I was a provincial, chess champion. And so this just translates into similar to chess, but it's just there's a little pain and tricks that come with it if you're a little bit slow. So you got to think a little faster.
I think in all my years of doing this, I never interviewed a chess player champion, so I think you're the first.
Yes, yes, I was a chess champion and a tennis champion. I was very good at tennis. Tennis was my sport. I played on the national team, and I was top in the province for as long as I played. I was unbeatable, and it really rubbed people the wrong way. There were a lot of people who all they did was tennis all day long, and I'd come in all smiling, just like I do practice, twice a week. And I would just win. And tennis is largely a mental game. And so,
Yeah.
any sport that has a mental component to it, I've been very good at that.
Unfortunately for me, the only type of tennis I was good at was Wii tennis, and that's the only type of tennis I can be good at.
That's still fun. That's still fun.
But of course, another thing too is that this is kind of something I'm always interested in asking is that I mean, when you came to America, there was so many options as far as combat styles, whether if it's MMA or of course boxing or Muay Thai. But you went to bare knuckle, so what kind of made you want to go to bare knuckle, knowing full well that it's got a history of seeing fights with so much blood, so much knots, so many things that we've seen in bare knuckle over the last couple of years. So, what transitioned you to go to bare knuckle?
Yeah, you know what? Overall, like I'm pretty fearless. I like any type of combat sport. I'm willing to do anything. But I was actually, I just finished having my third kid, so I had a bit of a break from fighting, and I was getting back into training. And I was looking for an MMA fight, and it just so happened that BKFC was coming to Omaha, and it was just meant to be. When I heard that there was a potential offer for BKFC, it's something that I've always wanted to get into boxing. I just never had the connections, or I just never really like thought about it. It wasn't available to me. And so the second that came available to me, it was like, this is it, because in MMA, I'm always trying to keep it standing,
Yeah.
and in MMA as well too, it's not something that it's not something that I craved or that I thought I could be the best in. I was more so doing it for the competition, but I never really saw myself at number one. When you bring boxing into the picture in all of my fights, it's a position that I've always dominated in. Striking is my thing. Like I said, there's many women that I fought, and they don't want to stand with me. It's very deceiving. Once my punches start coming, they're very powerful and they're very accurate. And so it's one of those things that you can be very confident coming in, but once I start landing those punches, it's very difficult for a woman to take.
And not to mention that, of course, this is something I've been thinking about as well, is that you have recently been a part of a huge roster for the women in bare knuckle. I'm talking you're part of ladies like, of course, Jessica, Taylor Starling, Christine, and of course your opponent hopefully in March, Britton Hart. I mean, so is there any sort of girls outside of Britt that you would love to get a chance to be basically come in there and fight against?
Yeah, you know what? I've always been calling out either Britton or Taylor. So, because I've been number one, and so the person above me is Britton, and the person below me is Taylor, and I've always wanted that next challenge, that top competitor. And so those are always the two that I've had my eyes on. And so yeah, after Britton, I'd love to call out Taylor, but right now I'm focused on Britton, and I'm excited for I've worked my way up the rankings with bare knuckle, and it's something like I've knocked all my opponents down, and that's not something that happens in the strawweight division. I'm not sure Britain's knocked down people. I still got to study more of her fights, but I know she's a decision fighter. She doesn't have the power like I have. I have unusual power for the strawweight division, and then on top of that, I've never lost a round. So on all three judges' scorecards for my two decisions, I've never lost a round, and so I'm not just working my way up the ranking, all nilly willy. I'm dominant. I've been a dominant fighter, and that's consistent with how my stand up game has been in Muay Thai and in MMA and in all of my fights. I'm just a dominant stand up fighter, and so I'm very excited to be challenged against Britain. Britain's amazing. She's the best for a reason, but I don't think she's ever fought someone like me.
And one thing I kind of been thinking about as well is that over the last couple of months before they announced the fight going on at Knuckle Mania, it's like it seemed like Bare Knuckle was kind of just teasing with both you and Britt and of course the fans, like, hey, like we'll get this fight going on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's any sort of reason as to why Bare Knuckle is kind of making y'all wait till March, knowing full well that you could have had this fight going on in Philadelphia at Knuckle Mania?
Yeah, well, on Knucklemania, it's not something that you know what, they asked me to fight at Knucklemania, but back in November, and I asked for Britain, and they said it wasn't on the cards. They said that they already had title fights booked, so they said it wasn't possible. And then come 1 month later when I pushed Britain and started some just building up the fight. They ended up asking us, but we told them that we had already booked a trip. So it's something that they told me no. And then we figured that would be a perfect time to book a trip. And so my whole family is going on a trip that weekend because I thought for sure I wouldn't be fighting. And that's because they told us that it wasn't in funding or because they already had title fights scheduled. But they said that's okay. And they're looking for March, but they told me long ago that I wouldn't be able to fight Britain at Knucklemania for that reason.
It's kind of crazy to think about this though, because Knucklemania it's kind of a very huge event for Bare Knuckle. Because if I'm not mistaken, I believe it should be around Super Bowl weekend. It's going to be at one of the most hostile crowds in all of America, Philadelphia, PA, at the Xfinity Mobile Arena. Like, you would just think that it would make so much sense to have the championship fight on the card. It doesn't matter if there's extra title fights. Guess what?
Yep.
I mean, you could just add more layers to this card.
I'm telling you, I asked for it, and I wish it would have worked out, but sometimes the matchmaking goes flip flop. You can't. And I'm very busy, so it's if I'm told no, it just sucks with how it worked out. But I tried to make it happen with her long before. I basically flew to Florida to start some drama with her so that we could build up the fight. And it definitely worked. Everyone wants to see me and Britain fight now. And I'm excited for it to happen, but it sounds like it's going to be March. And I don't think they tell us when it is, because the second they tell us and we sign contracts, well, then we can say the date. And I'm sure they want to announce it at the right time, probably a couple weeks before the event itself.
One thing about this, though, as far as Knucklemania, at least we do get an amazing fight going on between Crystal Pittman and Jade Wong coming up for you guys on February 6th, coming up at Knucklemania. That should be a very good fight. This is a rematch between the two. If I'm not mistaken,
they fought before.
They did fought before. I believe this was the first time that they ever fought, and I want to say Pittman got the win. I could be wrong. But, yeah, these two have fought before, so this is definitely going to be a very interesting rematch between both Jade and Crystal.
Okay. Battle of the OnlyFans.
Battle of the OnlyFans. That's a new one. I mean, you ain't wrong. So, I mean, yeah, we'll say it's
everyone's got a side career, right?
Yeah, you ain't lying. You ain't lying. I mean,
I went the doctor route. The OnlyFans wasn't available 15 years ago, so I chose to become a doctor instead.
I think the only women in that locker room that doesn't have an OnlyFans, I want to say it's you, Britt, Jessica, and Christine Ferreira. So I could be wrong, but
Jessica?
Jessica Borga.
Oh, Borga. Oh no,
Borga,
she's got an OnlyFans.
No, I don't think she does.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't think so, but I could be wrong. But I mean, either way, though, I mean, one thing I can say about this though is that when it comes to bare knuckle, it's like we're seeing more divisions happening, more women getting the opportunity. How
Mhm.
much does it mean to you the fact that we're finally getting a chance to see more women coming to bare knuckle to get the opportunities that they so well deserve?
Yeah, I mean it's great. I mean, I love that, more women are getting opportunities, and of course I'm team non-only fans. I want to see women, keep their integrity in check and get those opportunities without selling their body. So
Yeah,
I'm always going to vote for the women who aren't doing OnlyFans. Um, and I want to be a good example to people. I want to put myself in those positions where the OnlyFans girls are getting opportunities, and I'm happy to get those opportunities without, you know, selling my body. It's just it's I just don't like that. I don't like that, and it's nothing against the women. It's just how society is, and
yeah.
and I don't like a society where we're normalizing women selling their bodies to get in positions that they may have not have otherwise been in.
I, I just got a comment while he's talking. I don't know how I feel about this, but I'm going to show it to you guys. Um, Says from Justin Trento, when fighting doesn't work out, there's always an option B. LOL.
Yeah, and you know what? When you're desperate or whatever, then sure, whatever. But I think a lot of these women who are doing OnlyFans, they're doing it because they felt pressured that they wouldn't have otherwise reached these dreams and these goals that they had. And society was like, here's this option for you: sell your body, and then you can reach your dreams and be a fighter and build up a fan base so you can get these title shots. And it's just the way society is set up. But I think the more of us who show integrity and discipline and patience, then everything comes in good time if it's meant to be.
I definitely do agree, especially with sort of that aspects. And of course, what's when we do get this fight? What is something that fans should look forward to when you finally get your title fight against Bret Hart?
You know what? I think fans should get excited about, Britain really being challenged. I don't think Britain has fought someone as powerful and as strong as me in the last 5 years. Maybe Christine was her last one, which is really good. So she did a good job surviving.
Yeah.
But when it comes to her 5 title defenses, it's just women who aren't the best boxers. I think they're very tough and good brawlers. But she hasn't fought people like me. Like I said, I've never lost a round. I've knocked down all of my opponents. My opponents aren't calling me out to fight me again. Everyone who's Britain's fought, they're calling her out to fight again, because it's just matches that were close. And so I'm looking to set an example, and I love Britain. She's talented, and that's why I want it. I look for the challenge. I want the mental challenge. And I'm doing things that I've never done before, training for this fight. So I'm not playing around with this fight. Maybe my other fights I've taken some things not as seriously in training camp, but there's no jokes in this training camp. And Britain better be prepared. And I think she's largely underestimating me, but not a lot of people understand my history and how I was born to do this. I'm a puncher, I'm a striker, and my power is very deceiving until it touches you. And I wouldn't want to get hit with my punches.
I have to mention this, but of course, if you guys have not, guys, just follow her on Instagram. I definitely want to say that you have definitely never quit, but your opponents have. You had one fight where your opponent just says, "Please, please, let's end this fight," and it's like that goes to show that you are very, very tough to where your punches are making someone want to quit. So I'm hoping that I'll get my third interview with Britt. I've been trying to make things happen with Britt, and so way we get a chance to hear from her side as far as get a chance to hear about this big title fight. And of course, once when it does announce, you best believe I will hype up that title fight with everything in me because you girls definitely deserve it. You girls definitely deserve the love, and I am very, very excited.
Yes,
March Pepper, hurry up.
Yeah, and I mean, it's battle of the non-OnlyFans girls. So, two of us, and Britain's got good education. I think she's got a master's or PhD or something. So, in all combat sports, you've never seen this much education go toe to toe. So, both of us were moms, non-only fans. We've gone the hard way. We haven't taken shortcuts. So she's a person of integrity and she's very intelligent. And you see that in her fights too. And so I'm excited. There's no shortcuts or easy way outs that I want. And Britain is that test for me.
She's definitely going to be a huge test. And if I wanted to describe this fight, I would definitely say the Battle of the Moms for sure. Which, by the way, I definitely do appreciate the fact that everything that you do, because not only as a doctor, but also as a fighter, but also as a mother, it's like you do so much, and you definitely deserve your props where props is due. So I'm definitely honored to get a chance to have you here, and I'm definitely proud of you, first of all, because like you are shining your light in the biggest of ways. Shine your light for generations to say, hey, you can go in there and fight. It doesn't matter if it's Muay Thai. It doesn't matter if it's MMA. Or if you can go in there and you can get a face full of blood and bare knuckle, whatever it is, just go in there and fight.
Yes. And I always say life is harder. Life is harder. With life, you don't know when the punches are coming. Someone can lie to you, manipulate you, cheat you. Someone can die. You can never prepare for the days in life. Life is hard. But when I sign that contract, it's like I know the punches are coming. I know what's coming, and I've trained my ass off, and I'm all about good discipline and hard work. And so, it's not as hard as life. And so this prepares you for that the unexpected challenges in life. It makes you stronger all around.
Well, I have two questions, and actually one question before I get to my final question. Since you've been doing so good, and of course, I think it's been a while since I had a bare knuckle fighter on the wall of fame behind me. So I was wondering if it would be an honor to get you. Would you care if I have your autograph? For
Of
sure.
course. No, of course. Yes.
We gotta have it because we actually have Taylor Starr's autograph over here, some fight merch, some autographs here and there. Yes, I have a John Cena towel. Don't at me on this. I mean,
nice.
we all should have a never give up towel. It's somewhere.
Heck yeah. Yes.
So I would love to get a chance to have you on the wall of autographs for sure.
Of course. I will send you something.
I would have definitely been honored. And of course, my final question. Okay, shut up, Siri. My final question. This is going to be a very tough one. So we all want to be recognized for something that we do in the sport. Me, I just want to be recognized as that one cheesy interviewer, giving women the platform that they so well deserve. But you, as a fighter, you want to be recognized for something different. So my question to you is, what's something you want to be recognized for during a time of fighting?
Yeah, you know what? During time of fighting, I mean, I think it's more just the character that I bring there. I'm someone who I want to have an impact on the world, and it's not just in fighting, but I do believe that once I'm champion, or once people get to know me, I want to help American healthcare, and so I'm really inspired to do the best that I can because I want to help people, and I know that the better that I do, the more that I'll be able to share my message. And that's something that I do in clinic all day long. I specialize in chronic disease, and there's a lot of discussions for this chronic disease epidemic that nobody's talking about. And that's what I do. That's what I do all day in and day out. And so yeah, there's a lot more meaning to me for fighting, and it's not for myself per se. I love fighting for the challenge that it brings me. But in the bigger picture of things, I want to have a good impact on people and inspire the next generation and help people to be healthy, because healthy people don't hurt people. Healthy people want to help people. And I just want to be a good example.
You definitely are setting an amazing example for sure. And of course, before we do get to my final thoughts and comments, I just got to say this. So for somebody who has gotten us to just talk to you multiple times, showing my support to everything that we do here on the Fighting Queens, it's definitely an honor because you do so much. You do so much inside the ring and outside the ring. It's amazing. You're inspiring. You're setting a great example for so many generations out there. I am definitely looking forward to this big fight with you and Britt. And of course, but you can't have an interview without a little bit of cheesiness. So for having you on here, I gotta say, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. I look at everyone at the same level. Nobody's higher than each other, and I just want to help people, and I appreciate you letting me share my message and supporting me. It's I'm grateful for you.
I mean, I always say this, though. It's like I always tell people, you're the queens and I'm just the jester. I'm here to hype you up while you go in there and be the baddies that you are.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Well, thank you for your support. You're appreciated and you do really good work.
Well, before we go, do you have any final thoughts or comments you want to say before we hop off here?
I mean, no, I mean, I just want to say, just believe in yourself. You know, for anyone listening, you know, if you have any doubts in your mind, just believe in yourself. Just stay in your head and don't worry about anyone else around you. You know, I think that's just a huge, you know, mental strength that a lot of us need to learn. There's just so much noise and doubts and people, you know, projecting their own fears on you. And it's just important to just believe in yourself. You only get one life, and life is fun. Just treat it like a playground and challenge yourself and just get better at anything that builds you up and makes you feel good.
Could have said it better myself. Well, guys, if you want to get a chance to follow her on Instagram, please feel free to do so at Dr._Sara Shell. Look at those guns. Look at those guns. Meanwhile, here I am with just that big old bag full of pudding.
Yeah, I grew up on Will Ferrell. So like I have the Will Ferrell humor. So that's why like I'm always flexing, and I'm just that woman who's always flexing. It's not because I think I'm huge. It's just because it's just why not? You know, Will Ferrell is always like flexing, you know, from like Anchorman. He thinks he's so sexy. So it's like that's the mindset that I grew up on. Just goofy humor, just believe in yourself. Don't worry about, you know, what anyone else thinks.
This is maybe a funny question, but are you the type of person that flexes while listening to Sexy and I Know It?
I mean, I mean, probably, yeah. It depends. I mean, I'm sure. You know, I pretty much flex to anything. You know, anything to be a goof and lighthearted and yeah. You know, I love fitness and yeah. So yeah, I'll flex to anything.
that I never asked that, so I think that's a history. But guys, go follow her at Dr._Sara Shell. Sara, thank you so much for just being such an amazing soul. Allow me to get a chance to interview you. You are the best. And I'll make sure I send you my mailing info so we can send an autograph. I'll even make sure I get it framed so we can have a perfect spot for you right here.
Of course. Of course.
Sara, thank you so much. And I hope you have a great time. Fans, if you guys would see, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Go follow us here at The Fighting Queens on Instagram at The Fighting Queens. But until then, for the Queen, Miss Shell, I am Jake, not from State Farm, saying so long, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you, Sara.
Thank you so much.